If you are in the beginning stages of planning your trip to Yosemite National Park, then this video is for you because today I want to walk you through all of the basic things that you'll need to know as you're planning your trip to make sure that you have a great experience. Hey friend, my name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and today is all about Yosemite National Park with this trip planning video. So today I want to jump in and just talk about the things that you'll want to know as you're planning your trip, as you're starting this planning process, so that you can set yourself up for success in Yosemite National Park. Let's jump in. Yosemite National Park is one of the most famous national parks in America. It's located in California, and California has a lot of great national parks, but Yosemite really is the one that everybody wants to come and see. It's famous for just towering granite cliffs. They're beautiful. The colors are really cool. They're sheer, and so those cliffs are just so cool to see in person. The other thing that Yosemite is really famous for is for having some of the tallest waterfalls in America. And so you can go, you can see this water just falling over these giant granite cliffs, and it truly is spectacular. What a lot of people don't realize is that Yosemite National Park was one of the very first national parks to be established. It was established in 1890, making it National Park number 3. Yosemite is also a pretty large national park. It's about 760,000 acres, but it is one of the most popular parks to visit. So even though it's quite large, there are millions of people who come to Yosemite every year, which means that you're going to want to plan your trip in a certain way so that you can really enjoy this park without just feeling like you're in the crowds all the time. The most important part of planning your trip to Yosemite is planning it for the right time of year. Yosemite is open year-round. There are a lot of really cool things you can do in this park year-round, but if you're a first-time visitor, you're really going to want to focus your time in the summer months, and specifically more early summer, just because as the summer goes on, a lot of those big, beautiful waterfalls dry up. And so if you're hoping to see Yosemite Valley with the giant waterfalls and really get onto those trails, getting closer to the water, if you want to hike like the Mist Trail, which is one of the most famous trails in the park, then you're going to want to come to Yosemite towards the beginning of the summer. Looking at a map of Yosemite, so this is Yosemite Valley right here. This is the main part of Yosemite National Park. This is where you'll see all those towering granite cliffs and those giant waterfalls. This up here is the Tioga Road. This road takes you to the Yosemite High Country, and it's really beautiful, but it does stay snow-covered pretty far into the season. And so if you're hoping to come up here, I wouldn't plan your trip for earlier than about mid-June or so. Usually it's open by then. It does depend on the snow levels, of course. I've had luck going at the beginning of June and having this be open, but sometimes it opens a little bit later too. So I like to go again towards the beginning of the summer so I can see all those big waterfalls in Yosemite Valley. But if you're wanting to get to the Tioga Road, and I'll show you here in a minute another road that is more seasonal, then you're going to want to come more into the middle of June or so that you can get onto those roads. So that's the Tioga Road. This one opens the latest in Yosemite, and so this one is the one that you'll kind of want to watch and just time it so that you can get up there if that's important to you. Now coming down here, we have the Glacier Point Road, and this road takes you out to Glacier Point. It usually opens earlier than the Tioga Road. So a lot of times this one will open sometime in April, but usually more into May, this road will open. And so again, if you're hoping to get to all the main parts of Yosemite, you're wanting to go to Glacier Point, you're wanting to go up the Tioga Road, then I would plan your trip for about mid-June or later. These waterfalls in Yosemite Valley, though, start to dry up starting at the end of July and into August. And so if you're hoping to see everything, you really do have kind of a short window to get in there as a first-time visitor and get out there and see all of the best sights. If you're not a first-time visitor to the park and you're just hoping to see the granite cliffs, you're just hoping to be in Yosemite, then really you can go any time of year. Yosemite Valley stays open year-round. You can get in there pretty easily, even in inclement weather. They try to keep that road open, getting you into Yosemite Valley from El Portal. So you really can visit this park year-round. But again, as a first-time visitor, if you've never been here and you're hoping to see everything that Yosemite has to offer, I typically like to aim for about the middle of June through the middle of July. Let's talk about how to get to Yosemite National Park. Now that you've decided what time of year you want to visit, let's take a look at a map and I will show you the best ways to get here. This is my website, dirtinmyshoes.com. I have got tons of articles here to help you plan your trip. And this one is all about how to get to Yosemite. So you can see the closest airports to Yosemite are all small regional airports. You can fly into those, but most people fly into these larger airports here. So we have Yosemite National Park over here. You've got the Reno Tahoe Airport, Sacramento, San Francisco, or Fresno. Fresno really is the closest one. And also this is the one that I prefer if I'm also planning to go to Sequoia Kings, because you've got Yosemite right here. So it's pretty quick getting up into Yosemite from Fresno, but then you've got Sequoia Kings down in here. And so you're just really close. It makes for a really nice loop. Sacramento is another close option to Yosemite National Park if you're not planning on going down to Sequoia Kings. That one is a good one. The Reno Tahoe, so that one's in Nevada. That's you actually have to drive through the Sierra Nevadas to get over to Yosemite from here. I would not fly into this one if you're visiting in the off season, because the main road into Yosemite over here, that's the Tioga Road that closes down during the winter. So you'd have to drive all the way around. But that one can be a good option, especially if you're hoping to get to Lake Tahoe, Yosemite, Mammoth Lakes. If you're hoping to be on this side, that airport makes sense. And then we've got San Francisco, which is probably the airport that most people fly into to get to Yosemite. You can fly into San Fran and drive. It's about 4.5 hours to get over to Groveland and down into Yosemite. And so a lot of people do fly into San Francisco to visit Yosemite National Park. I don't have this on the map, but there are airports as well in San Jose and Oakland right in this area. And so both of those would work as well. If you find better flights, you don't have to fly into San Francisco. You could do any of those three and then drive over to Yosemite. I get asked a lot which entrance is the best entrance for Yosemite National Park, and it totally depends on which airport or which road you're taking to get to the park. So again, looking at the map, we've got a few different entrances to Yosemite. We've got the Tioga Pass entrance over here. This one is pretty crazy to drive up. You are gaining a lot of elevation. It's really epic. Actually, it's super cool. But that town levining out here leads into the Tioga Pass entrance and then puts you in the Tuolumne Meadows area and over onto the Tioga Road. So that one, again, is very seasonal because this Tioga Road doesn't stay open all the time. It's one of those roads that closes down. But that Tioga Pass entrance is quite epic, and it's a really cool way to come into the park. We've got Hetch Hetchy over here, which is just a short road that dead ends right here. So if you have some extra time in Yosemite, you could go in through this entrance and come check out this area. But a lot of people, when they're coming in from San Francisco or anywhere in that direction, they will come in through the Big Oak Flat entrance over here. Groveland, the town is out here, and so you come in and then you'll drop down to Yosemite Valley this way. You do lose a lot of elevation coming down, and so I don't like this entrance if it's the off season or if it's winter. Sometimes it can get a little sketchy in here. But during the summer months, the main season, this is a really normal, awesome way to come into the park. You get some cool views of Yosemite Valley up here, and you have really quick access to the Tioga Road if you're coming in from this area. The flattest and easiest way to get to Yosemite Valley over here is to come in through the Arch Rock entrance. It's a tiny, tiny town, El Portal. Then you have the town of Merced further out here. But this way into Yosemite stays pretty flat. It's an easy way to get into the park, and the road leads directly to Yosemite Valley. And then your last entrance into Yosemite National Park is through the south. This is coming in through the south entrance. You're near the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias. You're in the Wawona Historic District. There's a lodge and a campground down here. You've got the town of Fish Camp right outside. And then this goes down further through Oakhurst and Fresno. And so a lot of people do come in this way as well. This is a really good way to come in if you're coming in from the south or if you're coming from Sequoia Kings National Park. But it is a little bit further away from the main stuff you'll want to be doing in Yosemite. So it takes a little bit to get up to this Glacier Point Road or to the valley, and then it's quite a far drive to get up to the Tioga Road. Okay, so that's a really good overview of the park in general and when you might want to come to this park based on the weather and the entrances and which roads will be open and closed. So now I just want to put in a disclaimer that Yosemite is a very seasonal national park. I can give you general, a general idea of when to come to the park and what to expect during certain months, but that's not always going to be the case because this is a high elevation mountainous national park. Things happen, Mother Nature comes in and will, bring in big storms. It's not uncommon to get a snowstorm in May or early June. That happens. And so you'll just want to make sure that you're staying up to date on the current conditions in the park as you continue to plan your trip. You can go to the National Park Service website and check out the Yosemite National Park page. And there they'll have alerts and current conditions for what is actually happening in the national park at that time. Or if you want me to plan this all for you and pay attention to what's happening in the park and make sure you know how to navigate those changes and closures and weather, then you can get a Dirt in My Shoes Yosemite Itinerary where I will give you a schedule and I will stay on top of all the things that are happening in the parks. I will make sure you know how to use the shuttle system and that you're not getting stuck in traffic. So this is a really good option if you're just feeling super overwhelmed by the trip planning process to Yosemite. I can take care of it for you. You'll find that itinerary linked in the video description below. Now let's talk about how many days you'll want to plan to spend in Yosemite, depending on what you're hoping to do while you're here. If you can swing it, I highly recommend spending about 4 days in Yosemite National Park. That gives you a really good amount of time to explore Yosemite Valley, to hit some of the park's more famous trails, to make it up to the Glacier Point Road, to drive the Tioga Road. It will get you down to the Mariposa Grove. So you'll really have a good amount of time to get to all of the main stuff if you can give yourself 4 full days. 3 full days is good too. You'll have a little bit less time in the valley, but you'll still have time to get around to each section of the park. Because Yosemite has basically 3 main areas of the park, the Tioga Road, Yosemite Valley, and the Glacier Point Road, having 3 days will give you about 1 day in each spot. So that's a really good option as well. If you have 2 days in the park, I would focus on Yosemite Valley and then one of the other outlying areas. If you have 1 day in the park, then you'll want to focus mostly on Yosemite Valley. One of the main questions that I get about planning a trip to Yosemite is where should I stay? So let's sit with this for a minute and I will walk you through my recommendations for areas of the park to stay in while you're visiting. So we're looking at the map of Yosemite National Park again, and there are a variety of places to stay in this park. So you'll find a lot of lodging and camping options here in Yosemite Valley. You've got a campground up here on the Glacier Point Road, and then you've got a bunch of smaller campgrounds along the Tioga Road. There is like the White Wolf Lodge, and you've got the Tuolumne Meadows. They have a little lodge up there too and a campground. And so those are some options. And then if we go down to Wawona, there is a campground and a lodge down here in the southern part of the park. In general, I recommend kind of being right here in this main area. The Yosemite Valley area is basically the middle of the park, and you're going to be doing a lot in Yosemite Valley anyway. And so if you can get reservations in Yosemite Valley, that makes a lot of sense. You'll cut down on a lot of driving if you're staying somewhere central. And so that would be my top recommendation. If you're looking for a town outside of the park, then El Portal really is the best option here because it's just a straight shot into Yosemite Valley. It gets you into the park really fast. This town is really small. There's not a whole lot here. There's not like a ton of good quality lodging options in El Portal, but the location itself is really worthwhile. And so that's why we'll stay here, because location-wise, you really can't get any better than being in Yosemite Valley itself. So there have been plenty of times when we visited Yosemite where we haven't been able to get lodging or camping in the valley itself. And so we will come out here to some of these more outlying areas. I typically don't camp up here for the whole time I'm in Yosemite. It's okay for a day or two if you want to, stick to the northern part of the park. That also goes for staying in the lodge over here or going out this entrance and going down to Lee Vining. I would only do that for a night or two possibly, and then I would try to get lodging somewhere else. But if you can get lodging, if you get camping reservations in like Hodgson Meadow or Crane Flat or Tamarack Flat, somewhere right in here, you could stay there the entire time and just make that your base camp. That also goes for if you're down in Wawona. I personally don't ever make Wawona my base camp for my whole time in Yosemite. It's pretty convenient for getting to the Glacier Point Road or Yosemite Valley. You're talking about an hour drive to get up here. But if you're wanting to do the Tioga Road at all, it's so far away. And so in that case, if you're going to be here for multiple days, I might do a couple nights up here and then a couple nights down here, and that would work just fine if you're not able to get something more in the middle of the park. One cool spot where you can get a reservation where a lot of people don't know about is Yosemite West. That's right here. And Yosemite West is just outside of the national park, but you have to drive through the national park to get here. And it's in a really cool location for getting to Glacier Point. It's not very far from getting down into Yosemite Valley. And then again, a little extra driving, but you're pretty close to the Tioga Road from here. So I actually really love the option of Yosemite West. There's a lot of Airbnbs and stuff in here. And so that's a cool option if you're not able to find anything in Yosemite Valley or El Portal. Why don't I recommend staying further out than any of those places mentioned? It's because Yosemite is a pretty big national park, and the further out you stay, the earlier your mornings have to be because this park is so crazy busy and you won't get parking if you don't get in there at a good time. And it's just a lot of extra driving. So yes, you can make it work. Like, by no means am I saying it doesn't work, but it does take some extra effort and earlier mornings on your part if you're gonna stay somewhere like Merced or Oakhurst or Groveland. The reason that you want to choose your lodging so wisely is because Yosemite has just a million really cool things you can do while you're here. And so you're not going to want to spend your time driving around trying to get to destinations. You're going to want to be close to all the action and all the main things to do in the park. So now I want to talk about some of my favorite things to do in Yosemite so that you don't miss out on anything cool while you're here. I actually have a full video about the 12 things that you can't miss on your first visit to Yosemite. So go watch that if you need extra help. That's where I'll explain everything really in full detail and show you where on the map it is. But basically, if you're wanting to hike, I really love the Mist Trail. That's just a trail that I feel like is one of those epic national park hiking trails that you definitely don't want to miss. And so that one leaves right from Yosemite Valley. It takes you up past a really beautiful giant waterfall that mists you, and you'll be soaking wet if you time it right. And so that is a really great trail. Yosemite Valley has huge waterfalls coming down into it, and so a lot of the viewpoints and hikes are centered around water if you're in the valley. Some of my favorite spots are Mirror Lake and Lower Yosemite Fall, and I really love Valley View. That's a gorgeous viewpoint of iconic Yosemite Valley. You can also take a short walk to the base of Bridal Veil Fall, which is that main big waterfall that you see as you're coming down into the valley. And you'll definitely want to stop at Tunnel View. That is the iconic shot of beautiful Yosemite. Outside of Yosemite Valley, you'll want to make sure that you hit Glacier Point. That's a really, really cool viewpoint that looks down into the valley and has like straight shot views of Half Dome. And also, I really love hiking Sentinel Dome while I'm up on the Glacier Point Road. That's a super cool trail that gives you amazing views of the entirety of Yosemite Falls. And then you have the Tioga Road, which has some gorgeous high mountain scenery. I really love Olmsted Point. Tenaya Lake is super cool. And then when you get to the Tuolumne Meadows area, there's some hiking trails in there you can do. The John Muir Trail goes through here. You also have Lambert Dome. I really like walking on the trail through the meadows and we often see wildlife through here, and it's just gorgeous. And so this area is totally different than the rest of Yosemite. You're in the high country up here, and it's definitely worth a stop. If you go to the southern end of Yosemite, that's where you'll hit the Mariposa Grove, which is a beautiful grove of giant sequoia trees. You can hike through here. I really like hiking to the Grizzly Giant or the California Tunnel Tree. But it's a gorgeous area with some really big trees. You'll find all of this information plus a giant list of other things to do on Dirt in My Shoes. As you can see, I have the top 10 best things to do with kids, hiking, non-hiking, if you love ranger programs, if you're bringing a dog, all of these options are here in this article on dirtinmyshoes.com. Okay, you've made it past the nitty-gritty trip planning stuff for Yosemite National Park. Now I just want to give you a few tips, things that you'll want to know. Make sure that you plan this into your vacation as well before we sign off. The first thing is that you can find a lot of food options in Yosemite Valley. So if you're just coming and you don't do a lot of prep work in advance, you're just hoping to see Yosemite, you can find lots of different restaurant options in the valley, including a Starbucks, which is pretty new. So you can find a lot of amenities and things that you'll need in Yosemite Valley. As you go out to those more outlying areas like the Tioga Road, Glacier Point Road, stuff like that, you'll find a lot less amenities out there, but there are some gas stations kind of along the way. There are a lot of picnic areas that are really cool, so you could get some food in Yosemite Valley and take it to a picnic area for the day. But just know that this park does have a lot more amenities than most national parks. Another thing to keep in mind is that you are going to want to plan on some early mornings and some later evenings. To really make the most of your time in Yosemite, you're going to want to get out, be out pretty much all day. You can take a break in the middle of the day in Yosemite Valley if you need to, but in general, you're going to want to spend your early morning hours out in the park. And why do you want to do this? It's because the traffic and crowding in Yosemite does get really crazy. And the way that Yosemite Valley is set up is that you're actually parking in a giant parking lot and then taking the shuttle around. And if you need any help with the shuttle, I have that information in my Yosemite itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes. But basically you're parking in a big parking lot and then you're taking the shuttle around the valley. And you would think that since some of those parking lots are really big, that you don't need to worry about traffic and crowding as much. But actually those parking lots fill up pretty early and they stay full for most of the day. And if you can't get a parking spot there, you're either circling around the one-way road or you're just waiting for a long time. And then by that point, once you get a parking spot, then you have to wait in line for the shuttle, which can take 30 to 45 minutes to catch a shuttle. And so it's just kind of a domino effect there. You know, you come in late, you can't find parking, you finally find parking, then you can't get on the shuttle without a long wait. So it's a little bit miserable if you do it that way. I highly, highly recommend just getting in the park early enough that you can find parking right away. You can jump on the shuttle before it gets too busy, and you can really get around and see all the stuff before it gets too congested. Another thing you'll want to note is that Yosemite can get quite warm during the day in the summer, but the nights are always pretty cold. And then you're changing elevation a lot in this park. So to go from Yosemite Valley up to the Tioga Road, I mean, you're going up thousands of feet in elevation. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have good layers, that you're bringing warm enough clothing to account for the higher elevation areas and for how much it cools down at night in this park. And one last thing that you'll definitely want to know is hopefully you'll get to see some wildlife while you're in Yosemite, but keep in mind that it's actually illegal to carry bear spray in Yosemite National Park and in California, actually, in general. So you cannot have bear spray in this park. If you want some bear safety tips, you will find those on dirtinmyshoes.com. But basically, you'll just want to make sure you're making noise. You'll want to be really careful with your food, make sure you're storing it properly. But just know that oftentimes in the national parks, we carry bear spray when we're out hiking in bear country, but you cannot do that in Yosemite. All right, my friend, that is a lot of information on Yosemite National Park, but I hope it was helpful to get you started with the trip planning process for this beautiful, beautiful place. If you need any help with your planning, check out the Yosemite Itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes, or check out all the articles that I have that can go into more depth than I did in this video. But I hope you have a fantastic time in beautiful Yosemite National Park, and happy trails.